What's happening, everybody, and how the hell might y'all be doing? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Crash Bang Boom podcast. Today's guest is drummer Tim Baltes, a.k.a. Timbo from Keno, as some of you might know him from his super entertaining Instagram. Tim and I get into the inspiration behind his hilarious multi-tom in the air tonight drum fill over various songs in dedication to the one and only Phil Collins, the Fugazi rhythm section, as well as the gnarliness of the Jesus Lizard, his excerpt in the new Jose Medeles book, A Drummers Ethos, and much more. So I hope y'all dig it and get a laugh along the way. Today's episode is sponsored by my man Carson Gant, a.k.a. OneUpLoops.com. Carson and his team spend a preposterous amount of time recording over 400,000 shaker, tambourine, and hi-hat loops at every possible tempo in multiple fields with incredible mics and outboard gear for you to pick and choose. It's organized for you to find exactly what you need with just a few clicks, and everything feels and sounds incredible. You can sign up for free to check it out and gain full access to all 400,000 loops starting at $5.99 a month. No download limits, whatever you want, whenever you want. New loops, one-shots, and drum breaks are being added weekly, so check it out at OneUpLoops.com. Crash Bang Boom Podcast can be found on iTunes Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Luminary, Google Play, Podbean, and Amazon Music Podcasts, to name a few. Feel free to check out any of the previous 250-plus episodes and give me a like and or a subscription and or a positive review, as the support is appreciated. So here we go, Timbo from Keno, also known as Tim Baltes. Crash Bang Boom.
Crowds go mad with joy.
Yeah! All right, I'm here with Tim Baltes, a.k.a. Timbo from Keno, not to be confused with Slim Baltits. That's a different guy.
No.
Tim, what's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Jody?
I'm pretty good. When we had originally booked this, I was looking at it doing this about 24 hours or so after Thanksgiving Day and thinking to myself that I was going to be fairly brainless and bloated. And I would add acidic to that. So it's the holy trinity of me feeling like an absolute just booze bag bloated old man right now, coughing up Thanksgiving turkey into my mouth while I'm wearing a diaper to talk to you, Tim.
Man, you are dedicated to your craft. I'll tell you that.
How are you doing, buddy? It's good to catch up with you. I've only known you through all of your super goofy and wild and funny and outrageous Instagram posts. So it's cool to actually catch up with the man himself. How you been, man?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Yeah, I've been a fan. And recently, too, you've had a lot of people that I love, like Carson from up in Canada, Carson Gant, Dave DeCenzo a while back.
Oh, yeah.
The dude from like Kowloon Walled City. Like,
absolutely.
Like I know he wasn't on Container Ships, but
right.
That record was like monumental for me. So that band in general, just like so good, man.
Yeah.
So thank you again for having me on.
Yeah, Kowloon Walled City got that dark borderline, like it's hard to describe, but yeah, it's heavy as hell. That much I do know.
Yeah, I mean, and that kind of music, that dark, heavy music is perfect when you live in Wisconsin, because you get about 2.5 hours of daylight a week. So, we're just constantly in the depths of hell over here.
Because of the character that you portray via your Instagram account, I assumed you were Canadian, and I was looking it up. And apparently there is like a Kenosha Island somewhere in Canada, and I was like, does he live on the Kenosha Island of Canada? But you're here in the States.
I'm glad I don't live on Kenosha Island, because it'd probably be barren. But yeah, I'm right in between Milwaukee and Chicago, so I'm really fortunate. Perfect place to grow up as a musician, because you can see just about any band you want to see come through here.
Absolutely. Yeah, so much stuff's come in and out of Chicago. I mean, because of like the Jesus Lizard maybe working with Steve Albini on some of those records, I think people maybe thought of them as a Chicago band, but is the Jesus Lizard considered to be a Chicago band? I don't even know.
I don't think it is, but it gets lumped in with all that stuff.
Yeah.
When I was, I think, 13, I was in a band playing bass at this time. I didn't start playing drums till I was 15, but I was playing a bass in the band at the time, and we covered Prayer to God by Shellac.
Uh-huh.
That's Albini's band, right in that same vein. And then I remember getting exposed to Jesus Lizard, and so you'd think, like, sounds like Midwest music to me.
Right.
But yeah, not. But yeah, that is Midwest music. Again, heavy, angry, loud, living in a frickin' cave, dude. That's it. That is it.
You know, it's funny too. I've talked about it before. I would hear rumblings about the Jesus Lizard when I was growing up, and then I bought a used cassette tape of Liar right around when it came out from this old place that is no longer there, Rock and Roll Collectibles in the French Quarter in New Orleans. And the dude who ran it was the biggest asshole on the face of the planet. Like most people I find that work at record stores, they can tend to be like grumpy, borderline miserable fucks. He was the absolute pinnacle of grumpy fuck, man. But I got that tape and I listened to it and I was like, I don't even know what kind of sense to make of this. I didn't really have a reference point. David Yao, of course, sounded every bit as insane as he ever has. And then I got fired from one of my jobs. I've been fired quite a few times, but that was one in particular. And I threw that tape on, and then it made sense, and I've loved him ever since. It took me getting fired to be like, oh, this makes sense now.
You got to get to the next level of angry, and I think fire that'll get you there if anything will.
Absolutely, man. Well, I was thinking about it. It's interesting talking to people who I know, like yourself, maybe through like social media networks, right? And I mean, my God, dude, I was looking at it. I mean, you're like 1,400 plus posts in. How long have you been posting and doing this, man?
I mean, really, I think I got in at the ground level on Instagram.
Interesting.
I was posting when it was still just 15-second videos, and I was posting drum videos. And before there were videos, I was posting pictures of my vintage drum collection.
Right.
So like that's, Instagram has always been a forum for me to put drum stuff on.
Right.
And what's so interesting now is with Instagram really starting to change how the algorithm, how content is fed to consumers. Only now am I really branching out. Like I'm finally getting back on Facebook groups. There's a ton of vintage drum Facebook groups I'm posting on. Mm-hmm. I'm on Reddit now, and the Reddit drum community is awesome.
Huh.
And my TikTok sucks. The metrics are terrible, but I'm hoping that changes sometime down the line too, and even YouTube now. But yeah, for so long I was just an Instagram drummer, and now I'm just like an internet drummer, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, totally. That's why I'd have to go back to my original post. I don't suppose I've been on there for more than maybe 8 or 9 years or something like that. But I've been doing the Crash Bang Boom podcast for, I guess, 6 years now. So then it kind of just shifted to that. But I mean, I've found no shortage of interesting drummers, yourself included, via Instagram and just some of these social media accounts that I wouldn't have found maybe being associated with a band that I was listening to. But it's wild. It's like my feed is all like dogs, tattoos, and drums, and occasional asses. There's some fat asses in there, I suppose, too. But
my fat ass is in that feed, so that'll do right there.
Oh my God, man. Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the inspiration behind doing the Phil Collins and the Air Tonight drum fill, but over other songs, maybe at the intro of different songs with that big crazy concert tom, Jenkins Martin or Blameyer kit that you were playing. For those who haven't seen it, and even those who have, I guess tell me a little bit about the inspiration behind that, because I was laughing my ass off the entire time. It was really funny.
So it started, I think it was 2020, and there was a guy in Chicago who was super nice guy, a dude named Jim, who was moving from Chicago to rural Georgia to run a wolf sanctuary.
Okay.
So Jim sold me the drum kit that he used to tour the world with. It's been all over the world with him. And it was this giant all fiberglass pearl kit, 224s, 8 concert toms, and a floor tom.
Wow.
It was massive. And back then, I tried to do some fill things, but I only did like a couple of them, and then kind of moved on. And fast forward to this year, and Scott gets in touch with me from Jenkins Martin. And he's like, man, I've got all these concert toms, like maybe you can do something with them. And so he's in Missouri.
Yeah.
And we met like right in the middle of where we both live in Springfield, Illinois. And I have a little Honda Fit, and somehow I got this whole freaking drum set in my little Honda Fit.
Wow.
Brought it home and set it up. And literally that was just the whole goal of this experiment with the Blameyer drums, the fiberglass drums, was just to see how many frickin' songs I could play the In the Air Tonight fill over. I've done everything from like, I think I've done Kiss. I did the song from the Titanic that Celine Dion did, and
Steely Dan.
Steely Dan, like just the most ridiculous things. And I'm hoping if I have the time and the patience, I'm going to set that kit up again here and maybe do a Christmas series for the end of the year here. We'll see what happens.
Awesome. Awesome. Sounds good, man. You mentioned vintage drums. I have a few kits as well. I mean, I have like 4 full kits, maybe 7 snare drums. How many kits do you presently have?
I have 3 kits and I have 1 in the mail, but I've owned hundreds of drum sets and even more snare drums over the last 17 years.
Right. So you just have them for a while, dig them, and then cycle them out, maybe hold on to one special one. That's been the cycle.
That's basically how it works. Yeah, and I do a lot of buying and selling just to make a little extra income. So the beautiful thing about living in Kenosha is Ludwig was in Chicago, an hour south of me, in the 60s and 70s and 80s.
Right.
Slingerland was down there in Chicago. Camco was in Chicago. And Leedy was just east of Chicago.
Damn.
So all these drums that were made here from the 19 teens up through the 70s, 80s are a lot of them are sitting here still.
Wow.
So, you find a 1960s Ludwig kit for $150. Well, you bet your bottom dollar I'm going to go and run and get that thing. I found there was a set of old Camco toms with a snare drum, no bass drum, but those 3 drums were 5 minutes from my house. I picked them up the other month.
Damn.
So it's out there, and that's the beautiful thing about being a drummer here is and knowing what I know. So it's like I get some toys for a while,
right.
And B, most of the time I make some money afterwards when I'm done with them. So it's super, super fun little hobby.
That's awesome, man. I don't know. Have you ventured into re-wrapping drums? I pulled off one wrap and re-wrapped a bass drum and did the inlays and everything else. Massive, massive pain in the ass. And then I had an old Sonar Jazz kit. I mean, I say old. I think it was from the mid-'90s. And it was just a wood finish, so I just kind of sanded that down and wrapped those. But have you gotten much into wrapping drums? Because it is tedious, dude.
It's a pain. That I pay someone to do that. I'm smart enough to just pay someone else to do that for me. That's what I do.
I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, it's crazy. Getting the wrap off is every bit. That was the toughest part of it for that one bass drum. I mean, they put them on there with whatever contact cement, the same shit that you probably put on it when you adhere it. But dude, getting it off, it's a 2-man job. I had my buddy pulling it. We had heating elements, the whole thing, and it shreds your hands up. And then you got to sand it down. Then you got to get all the adhesive that's left off. Like it's maddening, dude. I wouldn't rewrap. I wouldn't do that again.
Yeah,
it was too much.
No. Yeah, I have a really good friend up in Milwaukee, Derek Mance. He's got a company called MKE Drum Co. And that's my guy who I go to, who does like anything big. I used to do stuff, as far as structural issues and fixing that sort of thing. But again, Derek, my buddy Derek's a 4th-generation carpenter. So whether I need something rewrapped or if I got a re-ring that's falling off a shell or an edge that's doinked, it's going right up to Derek. And I'll pay him the little bit of money he needs to fix it to save me a lot of time.
Yeah, for sure, man. I dig that kind of interesting green-colored Ludwig kit that you play a lot. Is that an old kit that was repainted, or is that a more modern kit?
That's brand new. So that's the 2018 Classic Maple Downbeat kit that Ludwig used for their photo shoot for the Heritage green finish when that came out.
Nice.
And then I just kind of heavily modified it. I had the edges redone by Derek, took the gaskets off the toms, put on the 1.6 millimeter triple flange hoops on the toms, and instead of the 2.3s. So, thing after thing after thing, and that kit's going to the grave with me, man. I modified it so heavily that now it literally sounds like exactly what I want a drum set to sound like.
It sounds killer, man. Yeah, I don't know. I'm familiar with the tom mics that you use. One of my buddies who owns a studio, those were his go-to mics as well. And they're great for toms. But your snare always sounds great. I don't know what kind of plugins you're using post-recording or with the room or what, but that kit, the snare, the bass drum, everything about it sounds really, really good.
Thank you. Yeah, so much. I teach a lot of that stuff, the recording stuff, and I'll do consults with studios because so many people want to know how the heck I get that drum sound. And honestly, it's just more than anything, it's A, tuning the drum right, B,
100%.
hitting the drum right,
Yeah.
and then getting a good room sound.
Yeah.
Because the room sound is going to fill out your kick drum sound and your tom sound and your snare sound and even the wash of the cymbals. So it really affects the whole picture of the kit. For me, I have a basement that has low ceilings, a low, small width, but it's super long.
Right.
So I have, instead of having a room mic go up or whatever, I go way out. I got a room mic like 40 feet away from my drum set. And
Oh, wow.
it's just a cheap little $100 ribbon mic, but that cheap little $100 ribbon mic has gotten me thousands and thousands of dollars worth of recording contracts. So, sometimes you get lucky.
Yeah, that's interesting. I got a drum room set up down in my basement in this house, and it too has short ceilings to the extent that if I get up on my tippy toes, my head will hit the ceiling. So you're not really gonna. I mean, I could maybe put some overheads over it, but I've kind of been doing a similar thing. It's not as long, but it's also carpeted and it's really dense, so it's a fairly dead room. So it doesn't have a lot of that like live reverberation that I feel like would be cool, a little bit cooler if it did. But it sounds like that's you're capturing some of that in that room for sure.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. Sometimes just even my room is dead. You really don't hear a lot of reverb if you're just, walking around and stuff. But just simply having it far away, you get that long tone, that kind of long sound, far away sound, but it's almost cleaned up by having all the stuff in the room, whether it's storage stuff or furniture or anything else. So you're actually doing yourself a favor by having a room like that.
Right.
You can do yourself a favor.
Yeah, that's cool, man. In addition to thinking that you were Canadian, I kind of figured that you were set up in a drum shop. I was like, I think he does this, like he has a little nook in a drum shop, and he does after hours recordings, but that's in your house.
Yeah, literally just the basement.
Nice.
So yeah, but it's just kind of, I wanted to have like a vibe to the videos. I used to just have like curtains behind that were different colors, tan and then like black and now the red. And I thought, I've got all these really pretty drums and all this cool stuff. So why don't I just like put it to use and just make the whole video look cool? And I've been doing that for about a year now. And yeah, I think it's got a good vibe to it.
For sure, man. Again, with you as someone who's so sort of heavily working with like the social media world, it's one of the questions that I like to ask because I'm not so good at consistently posting. Whatever that sort of obligation is starts to weigh on me a little bit. That's just me. So is that something that you have to balance? And I mean, it looks like you're just having fun. So I guess that takes some of the laborious and or redundant nature out of it. If you can just goof off, laugh, play some drums. I mean, is that the balance you found?
Oh, part of it is totally just trying to have fun. But it's funny enough, I get this question all the time. And I literally just got a DM this morning from someone who was like, "Hey, I want to try doing social media. How do I do this? Do you have any tips?" And I said, "Well, first have fun with it."
Yeah.
And the other thing is like my big thing is economizing the workflow. So like, I literally just film my practices for whatever hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes, and I'll play over whatever songs I want during that time. If I just want to do food reviews, I'll just do food reviews where I'm screaming about whatever potato chips I'm trying at the time. And, and then sometimes I'll do the karaoke stuff too, it's literally as long I try to focus on enjoying myself because it's, it's my free time, my fun time. And that's that's how I've structured the whole thing. And thank goodness, like, some people want to watch it. So that's kind of cool.
Right. Yeah. There's your bonus. You mentioned getting a kit. It sounded like when you were about 15, that was the same case with myself. What led you, I guess, to your interest, piqued your interest in the drums in the first place?
I mean, I always loved drums. I was the kid who, when I'd go to, band practice or whatever at my friend's house, I would try to sneak behind the drum kit, whether, it was me being 12, 13 years old playing bass in a band, or 13, 14 singing in another band. Whoever's drums were in the room, you knew I was going to play them. And then finally I was playing bass with some guys when I was 15, and they were like, "Tim, we can easily find another bass player, but we can't find a drummer. Like, why don't you figure it out?" So then I figured it out, and I've been figuring it out for the last 17 years, and I'm still doing it. So that's how that went.
That's wild, man. When you think back to sort of when you first started doing it, your influences change as your abilities evolve, because then you can sort of get into different styles of music, and then that inevitably ends up being tied to different influences of drummers that kill particular, styles, etc. So when you think about some of the drummers throughout the course of your playing from the early days to present, who are some of the ones that maybe shifted your style of playing that kind of had an effect on you to that extent?
I mean, the first one really was I was a Fugazi freak. So like Brendan Canty's playing was huge for me.
Me too.
I think the first professional grade cymbal I bought, I was just telling Chris Stanky this, who works at Sabian. I was just telling him this at PASIC, was the 12-inch ice bell.
Right.
Because I wanted that sound that Brendan Canty got when he was hitting this giant, I think, aluminum bell that he just had roped up.
It was a giant bell. Yeah.
Yeah, on a stand. I wanted that. So that influenced that there. And Joe Lally was influencing my bass playing as a kid too. So
he's killer.
Really all that music. As I grew up a little more, someone I always cite is Jason Tate from the Weaker Bands.
Huh.
If you remember that band at all, they were on Hopeless Records, and then later on Epitaph, kind of like an alt country, grown up punks kind of thing. And it was just such great music, and it evolved over the discography. And it was something where, as I was digging further into the discography, I was growing up and maturing as the music was growing up and maturing. So it's just like really, really seminal music in my developing my own drumming voice.
Right. Do you hear some of his playing still embedded in your own playing to this day?
Sometimes, yeah, little pieces here and there for sure. Yeah.
Are there any other guys or just drummers in general that you feel as though there's some of that trace still in your playing? I certainly have my moments with I could probably say maybe there's like 4 to 5 of them that, are still in there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's tough, I mean, because I pull from everything rhythmically. So like, the last, I'd say like 2017 to 2019, I was just like obsessed with rhythmically listening to like rappers and hip hop artists, because that now not only are you playing with melody, but you're really playing with rhythm and what that has to do around lyricism. And so as a drummer, we can think of like jazz drummers like comping, right? You're trying to accent what the horns are doing or what the piano's doing or what the bass is doing, and trying to be the glue that holds the whole song together. And in the same way, I think whether I'm playing in a pop context, a hip hop context, a country context, or an indie context, any genres context, I'm trying to fulfill that same role. I'm trying to be the glue. And so like listening to vocalists or listening to synthesizers, producers, their work, and then trying to convert that into some sort of rhythmic sequence that makes sense among all the elements in a musical arrangement, that's where my mind goes. So it's not only that drummers influence me, but that it's become so much more. And I really think we have to think that way too, because like our instrument's 100 years old and everybody's just starting to program now. So it's almost like drummers are becoming more entertainers than artists. So I think if we're going to push the craft forward of acoustic drumming, I think what we need to do is start thinking of it more in this sort of progressive, with this progressive lens. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned Fugazi, and when I spoke to Brendan Canty, I told him the same thing. I think, there's definitely different generations of drummers got into the instrument through particular players. I mean, undeniably, so many people point to Ringo and when the Beatles were on television. And then, later on, I think Neil Peart definitely influenced and brought a lot of people to the instrument. And I wouldn't say that Brendan Canty necessarily brought me to the instrument, but something that he did teach me, and that Fugazi actually, I feel like, really taught me, was that punk rock, quote unquote, if it didn't have to be confined to particular chord progressions or anything else, it was more about the attitude, the delivery, because they were a really dynamic band and they could somehow write these like borderline, like kind of punk rock, almost like ballad like songs, but it still had all this punk rock attitude in it. So that the musicality in their sort of expansive concept of what punk rock could be was something that they ultimately taught me.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think most people say it all the time. Old punks say it all the time. Is that punk is really an attitude,
Right.
right? And so, I was just starting to revisit the last couple of weeks here, the work that Ian MacKaye did with his wife, the Evens, which is it's literally just both of them singing, and she's playing drums and he's playing baritone guitar, but it's punk rock,
Yeah.
It's punk rock for old folks, and I'm here for it, dude. I love it.
That's funny, man. At any point, did you study with any drummer for drum set specific lessons along the way?
So I'm mostly self-taught, but the lessons I have taken, which are maybe around a half dozen lessons, most of them focused on how to hold a stick and how to throw a stick. I had some real bad joint issues after right at the end of my death metal drumming career in my early 20s. And so I studied with Dave Bales, who's at the Milwaukee Conservatory of Music in UW Parkside, Paul Westfall, who just joined the Wisconsin Conservatory of Music up in Milwaukee. I've taken lessons with like Matt Halpern before Periphery really hopped off, and a few other folks too. So, whether it's how to hold a stick, how to throw a stick, or how to all the stuff I tried to get out of Matt was like, how the heck do you play all these crazy odd times? And the only thing I remember really taking with that lesson forward was his tool was almost like a mnemonic tool, and he was like, yeah, if we're gonna play something, we'll just like create a little phrase around it, like Jimmy had a big meatball, and then that would be the thing that how we remember the rhythm of the riff. And I was just like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard, and it's the most brilliant thing I've ever heard too. I love it.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Yeah. At a certain point, I think when I was studying, I would get more, because I took drum set lessons while in college for maybe 2, 4, 5 semesters plus, I would say. And I got maybe a little cerebral around that time. And then it sort of took some time for just to let go of the sort of intellectualizing of it and just letting your hands sort of do the talking, so to speak. But with odd times, I would count them a lot. And then at some point I was just like, man, I just need to be able to sing the melody. I don't need to be counting about all this. And I haven't really looked back from sort of approaching it that way since then. People really get really, really crazy with counting. And it's like, if you could sing the melody, or if you have this ridiculous idea, Jimmy ate a meatball or whatever that was, I think you're better off with that. It's more musical in that sense. It's more melodic,
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. You mentioned death metal. What was that phase like for you? Because I know when when we're young, testosterone-addled teenagers, sometimes playing as fast as fucking possible is super exciting. It could still be super exciting, but of course, the sport of speed drumming is like so insane these days with guys like George Colias and John Longstreth and all that stuff. But when you were in that phase, what was that all about, man? And was it just about just that? It was fun just to see how fast you could play?
No. I mean, it was still, there was still definitely a sense of musicality around it, it's always been important to me.
Yeah.
I grew up, so like I started playing drums in a hardcore band.
Okay.
And so that led to, in the late 2000s, metalcore was really hot.
Yep.
So we were doing that, which led into deathcore being the next hot thing.
Right.
And then near the end of college and right after that, I guess it would have been right around just the end of college, I was doing death metal. And throughout the whole thing, was it about playing fast? Yeah, sure. That's definitely an element of it, especially the further away you get from hardcore and the closer you get to death metal.
Yeah, for sure.
But like one of my favorite drummers is Naveen Koperweiss in that genre. So like my favorite work from him, he was in a band called Animosity out of Southern California.
Yeah.
They put out one of my favorite records is Animal by them. Songs like Terror Storm and all these things. And you listen to this guy who's playing death metal music, but putting in like gospel like chops into his fills and still creating such a heavy driving like Meshuggah style groove to the thing. Meshuggah, again, here's one of the heaviest bands of all time, and yet it still grooves so hard, whether you're in odd time, whether you're not.
Totally.
Whether you're playing fast, whether you're playing slow. And that's one of the qualities I love about Naveen's drumming, is it's just right there where it should be, I think, musically.
Absolutely. Yeah, you mentioned Meshuggah, man. And whenever I go see them live, it's exactly what you're talking about. It's something about just the eighth note pulse of whatever Thomas is doing. And then you're not really, again, sort of intellectualizing. I mean, you might catch yourself because it can get crazy. And you're like, wait a minute, what was that turn around? But for the most part, if you just in the moment and groove and you can nod your head to it, which is kind of surprising if you were to actually break down some of the cycles that are being played.
100%. Yeah, I love that about that music.
It's crazy, man. I saw that you have a little section in Jose Medeles's of Revival Drum Shop out of Portland. He's got a new book, The Drummer Ethos, right?
Yeah, Drummers Ethos is the new book. It literally just came out today.
Nice.
Available through Revival Drum Shop site. And I've been really fortunate that to be friends with Jose for a long time now. And I played Revival Drum Shop's 10th anniversary show, sharing the stage with like Matt Chamberlain, Mark Juliana, Fred Armisen.
Wow.
And then that was a little daunting. And then I helped. I do a lot of consulting, so I've helped him with different marketing efforts for Revival Drum Shop and marketing efforts for the Stoic Drummer. I managed a little Instagram page for that for a while. And as Jose was working on his next book, his second book, the one out now, he said, "Hey man, would you mind, giving a little piece of writing for this?" So he sent me some questions, and I've got now a whole spread, a 2-page spread of my words right there in his book. So I'm really, really proud of that. It's a really just an honor to be a part of that, to be immortalized through that,
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's really cool. Yeah. He sent me a copy of the Stoic Drummer, and there's so many great quotes and just mantras, everything else in there. I occasionally, I kind of just keep it like in a book bag. And if I travel, I'll pop it open and be like, yeah, there's another one. It's just got little gems, but I'll have to check out this new one as well. That's awesome that you're in it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the new one I think people would like a little even more now, because like you have all those kind of nice, quippy, quick anecdotes.
Sure.
Like from the first book. You have the cool illustrations, and then you have long form writing. Brendan Canty's in this one.
Yeah.
You have Todd Trainer from Shellac, Stella Musgawa from Warpaint, who's played with like Kurt Vile, and drummers that just range the entire gauntlet, providing their own words in this book, which I think just adds like such an additional special touch to the book itself.
Right on, man. Well, I know you've done some session work and worked a little bit in that world, which can certainly be a pretty fickle industry from some of my friends that have worked in it. But tell me a little bit about some of the session work that you've done in the past and or continue to do.
Sure. So like I've been doing that for about 5-6 years now. Really for 5 years. After I got sick, I started doing that because it was like when I had a good day, I can work. And when I don't have to. So I was doing the first job I did, I played drums on the soundtrack for a slot machine.
Really?
Yeah. And then that job progressed to doing video game soundtracks, and then movie soundtracks, TV show soundtracks, and everything in between. Disney shows, tons of Disney shows for the Japanese Disney World over there, and then the park, and then for the Disney cruises too. So like there's just all sorts of stuff, which has been a blast. Yeah, I don't do so much of that anymore. Now it's so funny. You kind of go through phases in music work. Like I played in bands from the time I was 12 years old till I was 26. And then from like 26 to 30, 31, really focused on the studio stuff. Well, there's always this crossover. And then from like, 26, then I kind of started ramping up this consulting thing, and it's been crazy, like whether it's doing like social strategy or copywriting or product development, retail ops, and literally, and it's all drums. Like so much of it is just drums.
Yeah.
So it's just it's building a life in music, and specifically building a life in drums is really difficult, and it's really bizarre, but it's one of the most fun paths I think anyone can choose.
Yeah, man. You mentioned being sick. I'm not familiar with what happened. What happened when you got sick?
Oh, sure. So I got mono when I was when I was 26, so in 2016, and instead of it being a week, it was active for 6 months.
Whoa.
Yeah, so turns out that that broke my balls. Basically, what I'm dealing with is like testicular failure, and so we didn't figure that out though till 2020, and I was kind of like misdiagnosed and thrown the wrong way a few different times. But
Oh
yeah,
shit.
I've been on testosterone. I've been on steroids now for a year and a half, so I'm basically Arnold Schwarzenegger, which is great.
You look just like him, by the way.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think so. If he ate a few donuts, he'd be right up there with me. But it's yeah, it's a weird journey, dude, because it's like, and I think that's why I'm trying to continue to build this life in drums too. I worked in, I guess you could say, normal corporate America for 5.5 years. I worked for a company that just sold boxes and industrial equipment.
Yeah.
And it's fine. I was really thankful for a lot of folks on my team, and I was really thankful for the paycheck. But when you go through something really heavy, where at one point you're told, well, you have this thing that's probably just going to wind up turning into another thing, and then you're going to die.
Right.
And so coming to terms with my mortality, and then being told, oh wait, we screwed up, it's actually this other thing. You're going to live another, whatever, 35 years or something. So it's like, okay, now I have more time. Now I'm going to try to focus on not necessarily just finding a paycheck, but trying to find something that really fulfills me. And drums and music, I mean, I've been playing instruments since I was 8 years old. I got my first drum set from my uncle when I turned 3.
Wow.
Music has always been a part of my life, and it's always been the one thing that's continued to be a guiding light for me.
Yeah.
So that's why now it's continuing to figure out where that takes me and how that pays the bills. That continues to drive me, and it drives me, I think, in the best way forward.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that I speak for not only myself, but everyone else that's entertained by so much of what you do. I'm glad you made the decision to do what you do, man.
Thank you, dude. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, Tim, it was great talking to you, buddy. Thanks for the hang, man. And we'll have to catch up soon, dude.
Dude, thank you so much. Have a good one. I appreciate you having me on the pod.
Yeah, man. All right. That does it for today's episode. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks to Tim for the laughs and all the good times we had along the way there. Hope y'all dug it as much as I did talking to him. Always get a kick out of that guy. We'll catch you on the next one. Crash, bang, boom.